Okay, fractions. Before we get into the maths, let's look at the language of maths. So let's take the word fractions. Do you know what fraction means? Now, if you take the word fraction and compare it to a common word, fracture. So fracture is like a broken arm, a fractured arm, or if something is fractured, it's broken. So the word fraction comes from breaking things up. So let's take a circle and break it up into two. So now we've got two parts, or we could break it up into three, and we've got three parts, or four, and we've got four parts, and so on. And we would call these a half for the two parts, a third for the three parts. For breaking it into four, we could call it a quarter or a fourth. Breaking it into five would be a fifth, into six would be a sixth, into seven would be a seventh. So we call the parts after the number we've broken it into. And in maths, we call that the denominator. Now, if you're into languages, the word nom in French is name. So denominator is the name of the parts. So if I said I'm breaking it into twelfths, then you would know I'm breaking it into 12 parts, or into 20ths, and then 20 parts. And then if I take one of these parts, I've got 1/20th. The 1 tells the number of the parts, or in maths, we call it the numerator. And again, if you look at number and numerator, they both start with num. So number, numerator, that's the number of things. And denominator is the name. So let's look at some fraction basics. So I can take my circle, split it in half, so now I've got two halves. I can then split it in half again. So now I've got 2 quarters. So 1/2 is exactly the same as 2 quarters. It's just that I split it up differently. I can then split it up again into eighths, and then we can take 4/8, which is the same as 1/2, which is the same as 2 quarters. So these are all called equivalent fractions. They're the same thing. They're just worded differently. A typical exam question would be taking a fraction, let's say 6/12, and it says simplify this. So simplify means write it as simply as possible. So if we look at the 6/12, 6 divides into 6, 6 divides into 12. So do that. 6 divided by 6 is 1, 12 divided by 6 is 2. So the equivalent fraction to 6/12 is 1/2. Now if I take another one, if I take 8/10, again 2 goes into 8 and 2 goes into 10. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 8/10 is the same as 4/5. So I'll do a couple more here. 15/20. 5 goes into both of them. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 20 divided by 5 is 4. So that's 3 quarters. Another one, 18/24. 2 goes into both. 18 divided by 2 is 9. 24 divided by 2 is 12. So now I've got 9/12, but I can divide both the top and bottom by 3. 3 into 9 is 3. 3 into 12 is 4. So 18/24 is equal to 3 quarters. And then if I take 12/20, last one I'm going to do, I can divide both by 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 20 divided by 2 is 10. I can divide by 2 again. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 12/20 is equal to 3/5. This is a common exam type question. And if you need some practice, go along to effectiveeducation.online, where there are loads and loads of practice questions. Another typical thing you'll get asked in an exam is to put the fractions in order. So which is bigger, a half or a third? If I use my circle again, use blue to split it in half and use green to split it into thirds. I think it's obvious from looking at the circle that 1/2 is bigger than 1/3. Which makes sense, because the more you split it into, the smaller the parts will be. So we get 1/2 is bigger than 1/3. In maths, we would write it as 1/2. Then we use this symbol here, and we read that symbol as is bigger than. So 1/2 is bigger than 1/3, or we could say a third is smaller than a half, and we write it as 1/3, and we use this symbol, 1/3 is smaller than a half. You can do these in your head. Another example, which is bigger, a fifth or an eighth. So we're splitting it up into 5 parts, or we're splitting it up into 8 parts. Obviously, each part is bigger if we only split it into 5, so 1/5 is bigger. And again, if we look at a quarter and a sixth, which is bigger, well, we're splitting them into 4 parts or 6 parts, so the 4 parts are bigger, so 1/4 is bigger. It gets a bit more complicated when you have something like this. Which is bigger, 3/5 or 5/8? So they have different denominators, so it's impossible to compare them with the different denominators. So what we have to do, we have to write these as equivalent fractions so they have the same denominator. And in maths, we call that the common denominator. So take 3/5, the 5 times table. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. 5/8, take the 8 times table, 8, 16, 24, 32, 40. So they have 40 in common. So we can change both fractions to 40ths. We've multiplied the 5 by 8. So multiply the 3 by 8. 3/8 are 24. We've multiplied the 8 by 5. So multiply the 5 by 5. 5 5s are 25. 25 is bigger than 24. So 5/8 is bigger than 3/5. Let's do another one, which is bigger, 8/9 or 5/6. Again, write down the 9 times table. So we get 9, 18, 27. Write down the 6 times table. We get 6, 12, 18. They have 18 in common. So the common denominator is 18. To get from 9 to 18, we've multiplied by 2. So 2/8 are 16. To get from 6 to 18, we've multiplied by 3. So 5 3s are 15. 16 is bigger than 15. So 8/9 is bigger. And let's do a couple of quick ones here. And let's do this really, really quickly. And we call this cross multiplying. So if we take 3/5 and 5/8, I'm going to multiply the numerator 3 by the denominator 8. 3/8 are 24. And then on the other side, I'm going to multiply the numerator 5 by the denominator 5 to get 25. 25 is bigger than 24, so 5/8 is bigger. And then if I do the next one, 8/9 or 5/6. Again, 8 times 6 is 48. So I'm doing this on the left side. And then 5 times 9 is 45 on the right side. 48 is bigger. So 8/9 is bigger. This is how I would do this in an exam, and we call this cross multiplying, and it is super quick. Okay? You'll learn more by doing some examples. So go along to effectiveeducation.online. There are loads and loads of examples where you can practice, and you'll learn a lot more doing these than listening to me droning on about it. All right, equivalent fractions. So equal fractions, very, very simple. Which is not equal to 3/5. And then you get a list of fractions, and you've got to find out, obviously, which one is not equal to 3/5. There's a couple of ways of doing this. If we use the last method we just did, which was cross multiplying, take 15/25 and 3/5. Cross multiply, 15 times 5 is 75. 25 times 3 is 75. 75 equals 75. So these fractions are equivalent. Take the next one, 21/35 and 3/5. 21 times 5 is 105. 35 times 3 is 105. 105 equals 105. So these fractions are equivalent. Take the next one, 24/42 and 3/5. 5 times 24 is 120. 42 times 3 is 126. These are not equal, so the fractions are not equivalent. So the answer to this is 24/42. There are other ways of doing this. One way is to do this. 15/25, divide the top by 3 and the bottom by 5. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 5/5 is 1, so they are equivalent. 21 divided by 3 is 7. 35 divided by 5 is 7. They're equivalent. 24 divided by 3 is 8. 42 divided by 5 is 8 and something. So they are not equal, so they're not equivalent. Method 1 is by far the simplest method. Okay, if you're not already there, go along to effectiveeducation.online. There are loads and loads of interactive practice questions and examples. It'll do you more good than just listening to me. And the last couple of parts which use the same technique, one is putting things in order. You'll be given a list of fractions, and you have to put them in order. So here we've got 3/4, 11/12, 5/6, 2/3, and 5/8. So the first thing you have to do is find a common denominator, something that 4, 12, 6, 3, and 8 will go into. And in this case, the lowest one is 24. So 4 into 24 is 6 times, so 6 3s are 18. So this is 18/24. 12 goes into 24 2 times. 2 times 11 is 22. 6 goes into 24 4 times. 5 times 4 is 20. 3 goes into 24 8 times. 8 2s are 16. And 8 goes into 24 3 times. 3 5s are 15. So we make them equivalent fractions with the same common denominator. Now put the equivalent fractions in order. And now write down the original fractions in order. So 15/24 is 5/8. 16/24 is 2/3. 18/24 is 3/4. 20/24 is 5/6. And 22/24 is 11/12. I don't know any better way than this. If you do, let me know. Another thing that comes up in exams is where they'll say which is the closest to a half or which is the closest to 1. So let's do one. Which is the closest to a half? 7/8 or 10/9? So again here use the same technique. You have to find a common denominator of 8 and 9, and in this case 2 for the half. So the lowest common denominator is 72. Change everything to over 72. So 8 times 9 is 72, so multiply 7 by 9 to get 63. We have to multiply 2 by 36 to get 72, so multiply 1 by 36. So 36 over 72. And 9 times 8 is 72, so 10 times 8 is 80. So we've got 63 over 72, 36 over 72, and 80 over 72. Which one is closer to a half? Do a subtraction. 63 take away 36 is 27. 80 take away 36 is 44. Whichever one is smaller is closer. So 7 over 8 is closer to a half. Alright, get along to effectiveeducation.online. There are loads and loads of interactive questions and examples. Do some practice. It is much more beneficial than listening to me going on and on. Thank you very much.